Okay, good morning, everyone. It's time to start, and welcome to Progression's web chat, weekly web chat, Friday mornings at 10 a.m. This morning's topic is about SOLIDWORKS drawings, a few tips and tricks. Uh, I am Wayne Matus. I'm application engineer with Progression. You can reach me at wayne@progressiontech.com, or I'm extension 295. Some general housekeeping. The webinar control panel. Webinar control panel should be in the upper right hand corner of your screen. There will be a red icon with a white arrow on it. You can use that to expand and collapse your control panel. In your control panel, at the end of the session, we'll open it up to questions and answers. And at the end of the session, again, you can ask your questions under the question tab in the control panel. Before we get into drawings, there's some things that you can do on the model side to make it to where it'll be a lot easier, a lot faster to create your drawings. And I should mention now too that there's a lot of topics. If you go to, well, if I show you one thing, then I can probably find 5 other things to show you. Also, one of the keys to doing a presentation is knowing your audience. Well, it's kind of difficult to know the audience when we're on a web session, so I want to show you different things. Hopefully you'll be able to get something out of it. I do not mean to insult your intelligence if I show you some things that you already know, but there's going to be a varied audience here, I would assume. So some people may not know much about SolidWorks, and there may be others that are experts at it. So I try to do something in here to make everybody happy. So back to the model prep. So again, you want to make your models, you want to do some things on your models to make it easier to create your drawings. Probably the most common thing you'll do is create custom properties. Then you can use those custom properties to fill out the title block, fill out bills of materials for you, and do things automatically. Configurations. You can create configurations to show your model and different things, suppress features, suppress components, things of that nature via configurations. And then in the drawing you can show these configurations. So drawings themselves do not have configurations, but the models that the drawing is representing do have configurations, and you can take advantage of those configurations. Also, display states. Display states are different than configurations. Most of you probably do not use display states. They're more commonly used in assemblies, because in assemblies you can hide components, you can show one component transparent, things of that nature, versus configurations. Configurations, you can suppress features, you can suppress components, but you can do different things in display states. So there's advantages of display states over configurations in some cases, and in other cases there's advantages of configurations, and we'll show you that. Then finally, you can create name views in your models, and that way you can then show those name views in your drawing file. So let me try to find my SolidWorks. There's my SolidWorks. So here's a simple part. Configuration, or excuse me, custom properties. File properties, and this will give you a list of custom properties for parts and assemblies. You can have custom or configuration specific. And to add configuration or add custom properties, you can pick the item from the list. You can edit that list via the edit list box, and there's a text file, a properties.txt file, that is somewhere on your system. I don't know exactly where it is at this point in time, but you can set that to give you that drop down list. So let's assign this to material. Look like the material is not specified yet. We can also put the weight in here, and we can tie the weight to the mass of the part. And before I go too far, I'll go ahead and assign a material to it. So just right click on material, and you can pick from my favorite list, or I could edit the material and pick a material from the material database that comes with SolidWorks, or a custom material database that you can define yourself. So, configurations. You can create configurations. I've got a default configuration, and I've also got a simplified configuration in here. A simplified configuration just suppresses the small fillets. So if I switch back to default, now the fillets are there. And let's create a drawing of this. So I'll make a drawing from the part or assembly, pick a template, and there's multiple ways of creating views or adding your views of your model to the drawing itself. I typically prefer using the view palette, but you can also use your view layout or your view command pull down menu. There's multiple ways of doing it. View layout, you have standard 3 views. You can do a model view, or then once you get other views in there, then you can do projected views and things off of those projected views. I'll just do a standard 3 view here, pick the model that I want to create the views from, and there's your 3 standard views. And again, then I can now do projected views, project a view off of one of these views, or I could insert a model view and pick the model. And this is kind of a wizard based approach. Pick the model, then you pick what view you want to add. And I've created a name view reverse, and I'll just click in there. Let's go back to the model because I forgot to show you how to create name views in a model. So basically you can rotate your model around, zoom in, zoom out, do everything you wanted to with it. And then you can either hit your space bar, and that should bring up orientation where you can move, click on a face of this cube and it will orient the model to that particular face. Also, if you like the view that you're in right there, you can hit the name view and give it a name. Call it my view or something like that. So now in the model, I can rotate it around. If I hit my space bar, I've got my view. I can quickly go back to that view. And then, as you just saw in the drawing, we can show that name view on the drawing. Drawing views, we can tell it what configuration of the model we want that named or any view to appear as. So here I can click in the view, go to my properties of that view, and I can set this to the simplified configuration, and you can see that it now has those small fillets suppressed, so I can't see them in this view. Also, some of you may not like these short edges right here. You could right click on it and hide it, and that will just hide that particular edge. I could also make my tangent edges with font. And now if you zoom in, you can kind of see well, they're too short to show with font, so probably I'll just right click and go tangent edges and remove them. And now you don't see those tangent edges anymore. Also, properties of a view. I can right click in the view border, and I could lock the view position, and now I can't move that view other views, I can move them. Also notice that when I'm in my parent view, if I move it, all the child views are aligned with it. I can break that alignment if I wanted to. Or as I create the views, so I'm going to select this view right here and do a projected view off of that. Now if I project off an isometric view, it stays aligned with it, but if I hold down my control key, that will break the alignment as I'm placing the view. And do a quick search here. Look like everything is okay. So that's some of the stuff on drawings. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I've got an assembly here. Again, I talked about display states. This assembly has a couple of display states in it, and I'm not going to get too deep into display states, but here's one display state, here's another display state. So display states, we can hide components. This display state, and I'll just show that display state. Well, there it is. So this display state actually has, if I look, the battery case is in wireframe. It's in hidden lines removed. The lens is it changed the color, but the lens changed the color just in this assembly. This is a component appearance applied to it. And let's see also here, the head, this part right here. Well, I'm picking the parts underneath it, but anyway, the head, swivel head, is transparent so we can see through it. So now if I create a drawing of this and use the same template, and this time I will, well actually I'll do a current view, and I'll use the view palette and just drag it and drop it from the view palette. And again, in the properties, I can go over here and tell it what display state I want to use or to show in this view. So there's a display state where I'm hiding some of the components. And let's make it a little bigger. Make it maybe a scale of 2:1 for the entire sheet, which brings up another point. We can do scales of individual views. We can scale the sheet. And we can define for a particular view a custom scale just for that particular view. Now this display state has the components hidden, so I can look at this view in wireframe mode. I'm going to select inside the view, Control C, copy to the clipboard, and then Control V and paste it. So I can copy and paste views. I can move views from one sheet to another sheet. Now this view over here, I want to show it in the other display state, but notice it looks like it's the full model. So this view, to be able to see it the way I want to, I need to shade this view. And now once it's shaded, you can see that this part is transparent and this part is in wireframe mode. But you only see that when that view is shaded. So depending on your display state, you may have to show your views in your drawing in shaded mode to get the effect that you want. And back to the PowerPoint. And let's talk about templates a little bit, drawing templates in general. The drawing templates, typically what you'll want to do to fill out your title block, to pull that information from your custom properties, you will need to set up your title block so that you're pulling that information. To do that, to pull it from the model custom properties, you would need the $ PRP sheet colon and then the name of the custom property that is in the model file that you want to pull from. If you're pulling it from the drawing file, it would just be $ PRP and then the custom property name. So let's go back to try to find my SOLIDWORKS. There's my SOLIDWORKS. And I'll leave that window open. I'll just go back to this part right here and create a new drawing of it. Should have left the other one open, but anyway. Make drawing from part. Pick the template. And before I get into it, I want to show you if I right click and edit the sheet format, and then the sheet format contains this text right here, the $ PRP sheet description. So this will pull the description from the model that the drawing is representing. This will pull the weight from the model that it's representing. There's the material from the model, finish from the model. If I hover my cursor over here, this one just says, hopefully you can see that, but anyway, it should say just $ PRP revision. And that would pull it from the drawing file itself. And the reason to do this, when I start putting my dimensions or my views in the model, or that first view, drag it in here, notice how it automatically fills in a title block for me. So it's pulling that information, including the weight from the model. The revision was $ PRP revision, so I need to go to the custom properties of the drawing file and add the revision custom property. Now this probably should be in your drawing template also, any of these custom properties that you're going to be using over and over again. So build your templates, save them, share them, and that way your title blocks get filled in automatically for you. So there it pulled in the revision from that model custom property. And there's the material that we assigned to the part. So that will save a lot of work over the years. And let's see what's next in the list. Okay, this is a topic that you probably need to discuss with all your coworkers on how do you dimension your drawing. There are two choices. You can insert your annotations from the model, or you can just manually dimension the drawing. And you can hear good arguments on both sides. Advantages of inserting annotations is that you can actually change the model directly off the drawing. You can just insert the model annotations or insert the model dimensions and then the dimension, click on the text of the dimension, double click on it, and it brings up the edit box just like it does in the model file, and you can then change that value. Now the reference dimension themselves, if you just insert a dimension or add a dimension to the drawing, that's not driving the model, but if the model changes, that dimension will change, so you don't have to worry about that. So let's go in and, sorry, I went too far. There's my SOLIDWORKS. Don't think I need this model anymore, so I'm going to close it. And I think I will need this one later, so I'll keep it open And let's open up a new, not create a new, open up an existing file. And I'll open up this idle arm. And so here's all my features. If I want to look at the model features, I can right click on the annotations and show feature dimensions. So here's all the dimensions that were used in the model, or at least all the dimensions that are shown. I can right click on the dimension and hide that particular dimension. Also, we have an option here, mark for drawings. As a default, all the dimensions in the model are marked for drawings, but when you insert your model items into your drawing, you've got an option to only insert the marked dimensions. So just a little tip there. So let's create a new drawing. Make drawing from model. And I'll just put in a front view. Let's maybe pop up a top view, a right view, do an isometric view, again, control key, and then I can break the alignment of it. Also, if I do a control key off of these projected views, you can see now that I could break the alignment off of these other standard projected views. But I don't think I need one of those. I'm going to go ahead and put in a few other views in here. I can do that from a view layout. Maybe make a detail view. Now, I do recommend when you're creating your detail views, typically you're going to create them with circles, but anyway, create relationships between your detail circle and your geometry, so that way if your geometry changes, the circle will move with it. And let's create a section view in here also. Section view, we want to create a vertical section line. So again, I'll just do it right at the center. And if I hold down my control key, then I can break that alignment. And now I can insert my model items, and that'll be under my annotation command manager tab and model items. And now if I look at my properties, there are different options for inserting our model items. I can do the entire model, or I can select features and it'll just import the dimensions for that particular feature. I'll do the entire model. Do I want to do it in a single view or all views? I'll import it into all views. Here's where I got the option of marked for drawings that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Not marked for drawings. Do I want to import pattern instant counts and revolution counts, tolerance dimensions, hole callouts or hole wizard profiles, hole wizard locations, hole callouts. I can bring in all kinds of stuff. What type of annotations I want to bring in. I can bring in my notes from the model, my finish symbols, GD&Ts, datums, anything I want to. And reference geometry, what reference geometry I want to bring in. Include items in hidden features, so if I can't see the feature in the view, then it's not going to bring it in. Or do I want to bring it in? So I'll just hit my OK button, and there's all the dimensions. Now what it does, it will first try to place the dimensions in detail views, and then section views, and then standard views. So notice it didn't place any any dimensions in the isometric view, and look like I don't really need this view up here to put my dimensions in. But I can also move the dimensions to another appropriate view if I needed to. I can also just go into the view and reposition the dimensions. That radius dimension, I've got it selected. Let's go into leaders, and then I can have it dimension to the inside of the arc. And that will move it back to the other side of the arc. And then I can click it again, and then I can click on the arrow or the dot on the end of the arrow to reposition it. Witness lines, should be able to take that witness line and drag it to that endpoint, and that should, well, it didn't work for me, but it should put in a specified gap. Let's try this in here. And it's not working for me, but what it should do is actually create a gap between this line right here and the witness line. Also, a little tip you can use, I can select the dimension. If I control select that tip of the arrow, then I can drag it over to another arc that is the same radius, and now I got one dimension to both of those. And then I could right click on this leg and add a jog point. Come on, where's my jog point? Oh, it added it to the wrong one, so let's just kind of do this. And I can add it, see if I can do it to this one here. Oh well, but so you can add jog points to get your arrows to where they're pointing correctly. Now there's going to be some cleanup work on positioning the dimensions, but you can do that. Also, some people complain about this box right here, but if you click on a dimension or hover your cursor over a dimension, or click on the text of the dimension, and then there's a box that will pop up for you that you can go in and add tolerances and change the precision and stuff like that for it. So there's some tips on bringing in your model dimensions. One of the other advantages of doing this is, or at least one that I was told, which makes a lot of sense, is a lot of people here in Houston, they do a lot of long parts that got little holes in them. And if you manually dimension sometimes a long part, you may think you're selecting the center line of a hole, but you maybe select one of the edges of the hole. So then when they go to manufacture the part off the drawing, the hole's in the wrong place. So that's one of the advantages. If you're dimensioning, or your dimensions are coming from the model, and the model should be accurate. And I think I'm finished with that drawing. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Next one I want to show you is DimXpert, the manual method of DimXpert to automatically or semi-automatically dimension your drawings. So let's go back to SOLIDWORKS, and I'm going to open up this part right here, bracket single. and make a drawing of it. And here, let's just drag a few views on, project them off of it. And now, to manually dimension a drawing, you can use your Smart Dimension, and then click on the Dimension Assist tool, and this is typically how you do it, where you then select the objects you want to dimension. But you can also use the DimXpert. DimXpert then allows you to pick your scheme for linear dimensions, or is it going to be polar dimensions, depending on whether it's a mill part or a turn part. Dimensioning style, you want baseline dimensions or chain dimensions. Pick your datum. Also, when you're doing dimensions, you can put the dimensions on a layer. So SOLIDWORKS does have layers on drawings, just like AutoCAD. So here I want to pick my location for the origin. And now all I need to do is just pick the geometry that I want to dimension. Now here's a little warning that the call out is not going to update with changes, but okay. And you can see where it put not only the dimension to that particular circle, but also the location for the other circle. And let's maybe dimension that one. And let's maybe dimension to that edge right there. Probably could have put that in another view. So there's that view's dimension, and I can do the same thing. I can use my recent commands and turn on the Smart Dimension again, or I could have hit enter to get to my last command. And let's maybe, for this one, let's pick that as the origin. Dimension that. Dimension to that. And also dimension to that. So there's that view dimension. Now I can just hit my enter to get to that last command again. Pick the origin. Here, let's pick, I'll pick the well, I'll just pick this edge right here. And let's pick this edge to get a overall width of it. Let's pick this circle up here to get the diameter of that, the center, location. And let's do this circle here. And also let's do this there. So you can see how quickly you can create dimensions using that DimXpert in the manual process of doing the DimXpert. Moving on. Now I'm going to show you the automatic method of using DimXpert. DimXpert is actually a tool that's in the basic SOLIDWORKS product, where it makes it easy where you can dimension your model. You can turn it on to use a tolerance dimension or geometric tolerancing. For the DimXpert in the model, it's a little icon in your property manager. If I click on that, and then I can click on this first icon here, Auto Dimension Scheme, or I could individually do them. But anyway, here I can tell it whether it's a primary or prismatic part or a turn part, what type of tolerance I want, and then specify my datums. So here are my datums. I'm going to say this is my primary datum down here. It's going to set on something there. My secondary datum, let's say there's something bolted in here or pinned, so I want that as my secondary. And the third, of course I don't have to have all three, but in this case I'll set this face as my third. So basically it's going to, and that should define everything. Now the scope, do I want to dimension all features or selected features? What type of features, I guess, or what type of dimensions I want to put in here? Planar basically be a distance. Surface, cone, typically I'll just select them all. And now when I hit my OK button, you will notice that in this case the model turned green. That is an indication that I've got this model fully dimensioned. It's got all the dimension it needs to make this, for machinists to make this part, and quality to inspect it. These tolerances that it used were coming from options, tools options. I'm not going to go there, but anyway, if I click on the individual dimension, here's where I can change the tolerance from the default to something else. The geometric, if I double click on the geometric, brings up the properties for that geometric tolerance, and I can change it here. So now I can make a drawing of this. So I'll make a drawing of it using the same old C template. And if I use my view palette, I have an option here to import annotations and DimXpert annotations. I'm going to turn off my auto project, but notice some of these views have A's in front of them. These are basically annotation views. And now if I take and drag these views on there, it's going to automatically bring in my DimXpert dimensions. Also, if I drag the views on, notice if I move it close to alignment, it will snap into position. And let's drag a right view on here. So there's a dimension drawing, just like before. We'll want to do some cleanup work on them, but not too difficult to do. So there's the automatic DimXpert method of putting the DimXpert dimensions in the model and then just bringing in these DimXpert dimensions into the drawing. And let's see, I think I've got one more thing I want to show you. Bills of materials. So basically we can create a bill of material of an assembly, or put a bill of material on an assembly drawing and then balloon it for us. And a few tricks to that. So I'm going to close this model, and let's use this assembly for my bill of material example. So let's make a drawing of this. And I'm just going to bring in this exploded view. And let's go ahead and make it shaded, I guess. and bring in a dimension, or excuse me, not dimension, but the bills of materials. I need to select what view I want to create that bill of material from. So I can go to my annotations, command manager tab, and tables, and bill of material table. I hope none of you are still using the Excel based bills of materials, but the bill of material is something that SOLIDWORKS added quite a few years ago. We can have different templates for the bill of material, defining what columns we want in the bill of material and what values you want in the different columns. I'll just use the standard out of the box one that comes with SOLIDWORKS. We can attach it to an anchor point. Bill of material types, do we want a top level only? Do we want parts only? Or we want indented? So top level only will give only the components and top level sub-assemblies. Parts only will exclude the sub-assemblies but include all the parts in these sub-assemblies. Indented will include the top level sub-assemblies and the top level components, but it will indent them to list the components in these sub-assemblies. And then if I do indented, then I have an option of picking which, do I want to just list them or do I want to give them a sub number? And I'll just use the default configuration, I guess, here. Part configuration, grouping, display with the same name as separate items. And I'm not going to get into a lot of details on all this. Options, keep missing items. So if you remove an item, do you want it still in the bill of material or not? Where do you want to start? And I'll go ahead and say OK. And there's the bill of material. Now look like this description. It is probably tied to the custom property description, custom property from the models, but look like these models don't have description in them, so that's the reason why that's blank. Bill of material itself, I can right click on it and insert additional columns to the right, left, do things with this. But one thing I do want to point out that we can do with this also, you may not be aware of, a lot of times if you have real large assemblies, you will, for modeling purposes, create dummy sub-assemblies to put parts in, so that way you don't have thousands and thousands of mates at the top level. And then when you hit a rebuild button, then it's going to have to solve all those mates. So what you can do, you can create dummy sub-assemblies to make working in a large top-level assembly faster. To get around that in your bills of materials, say for example, let's assume that this sub-assembly head is a dummy sub-assembly. So what I can do, I can click on the arrows here and it'll bring up the individual icons here, and then for this sub-assembly I can right click on it and change the component options. So this will change the components, how the components in this sub-assembly are displayed. I could show the child components, I could hide the child components. In this case, since this is a dummy sub-assembly, or pretend it's a dummy sub-assembly, I want to promote them to the next level up assembly and hit the OK button. And it gives me a warning that it's going to dissolve in place when placed in bill of material. Include assembly instruction in all materials again. Yeah. Dang it. Sorry. SOLIDWORKS 2015, I think it was, they added the timeout, so if you don't do anything for a certain period of time, then it doesn't do anything. So anyway, I'll go back to it, promote it, and hit the OK button, and OK that dialog box. And now you can see it doesn't list the subassembly, but it does list the component in the subassembly. And now, Let's go ahead and auto balloon it. And let's put all the balloons at the top. I'm going to uncheck ignore multiple emphases. Now I'm just going through this fairly quickly, but I do recommend sometime if you have some time, go and look at all the different options when you do a command to see what all you can do with that command. You'll learn a lot about the software that's kind of hidden that you don't really realize is there. Let's just go ahead and drag that down to make it look a little better. So that's a little trick on bills of materials. And let's go back to the PowerPoint. I think I'm done with the presentation. So bills of materials. Okay, yeah, I look like I am done with it. So I guess I'll open it up to questions. See a question here from, well, a lot of questions in here. And let's start from the top. Would you please explain how to show the chamfer in a dimension? Okay, so let's maybe put a chamfer in here on that edge. And that's too big of a chamfer, maybe at 1 millimeter. And let's go ahead and tangent propagation. I'll do a full preview. And it goes all the way around there. So there's the model. And let's make a drawing of this. And I think that view right there should have the chamfer on it. So let's create a smart dimension. And we'll use a smart dimension. And then I can right click and more dimensions, and here's a chamfer dimension. And then I can pick, pick the chamfer and another edge, and then I can define the chamfer dimension. And here I've got some values for it. That I could change. So that's basically how you create a chamfer dimension. I think if I would have made the chamfer dimension in the model, I think I could have imported that. But there's the manual method of creating a chamfer. If I didn't answer the question for you, shoot me an email and I'll try to do a better job of explaining it. Dang it, it's hard for me to read this little fine print on here. Highlight dimension and auto arrange. I'm not familiar with the auto arrange. Have to to do a little research on that one. Not sure exactly what you're talking about there, so I had to look into that one. Recording, yes, I am recording it. Unfortunately, I've had issues before in the past. I can't use the GoToWebinar recorder, but I use Camtasia, and I'll record it via Camtasia, and I'll send that recording to our marketing person. The marketing person will put it up on YouTube, but the recording will be available for everybody, yes, for all attendees and even people who did not attend. If the DimXpert is used in the model, can it be used to update the model from the drawing? No, unfortunately, that is not a driving dimension. The DimXpert dimensions are not driving dimensions. Uh-oh. Why didn't the DimXpert add the basic dimensions to the holes? Good point. I didn't notice that. I thought it should have. Let's try it one more time. Tertiary. Oh yeah, that's right. Where's they are green also, so it did give a true position dimension, GD and T. Huh. And let me delete that dimension. Not sure. It still thinks the holes are dimensioned properly. So good question. I had to look into that. Shall they explode again? Keeping placeholders in BOM when items are deleted. Keeping placeholders in BOM, that was that option to what to do with missing items. Now this assembly already had an exploded view in it. Let's see if this straight one does not. So explosions are configuration specific, so I can right click, new explode view, and then I can just pick the component or components, and let's see if I can reuse the exploded. So if this subassembly hasn't exploded in it, I can reuse it. Here, maybe I just want to manually do this one. And let's see. And I want to select these subassembly parts. So I'm only selecting that single part out of the subassembly now. Take that and explode that. Think that to lens, take that and explode it out. Or I could do a couple of these at a time. I guess that's only one component. Take that one and explode it out. Take that, explode it down. So that's basically kind of how you do it. And then there is an option here, I really don't use it that often, but you can create explode trails. And I think it's on the sketch. Or is it on assemblies? Explode line sketch. And here I can then pick geometry. So I wanted to go, the arrows pointing down. I want to go through. Let's go to that. To get that one, and I can do the same thing for this one here. And then right mouse to create that explode trail. And I'll just do one more. Select the circular edge and then explode it. Then I could create jogs in here if I needed to. Create a jog. Now I don't really need a jog in here, but there's a jog. So that's a quick tutorial on how to create explosion lines. And I'm not sure, let me see it, open up this part. The G key is a magnifying glass. That's sometimes beneficial when you're trying to dimension a drawing. Manually dimension a drawing where you can turn on that. Hit the G key, it will bring up a magnifying glass, allow you to select small geometry a lot easier. And let's get out of the command, and now let's try to open up one of these parts just to see. I want to do a quick, so look like this is a feature-based model. So let's go to the file prior to make a drawing of this, and I'm back on the auto arrange that was asked earlier. And let's see, view layout, standard 3 views of the battery cover. And now let's go to the insert model items. going to turn off the use dimension placement from the sketch. And still not sure exactly how to do this, so I apologize. You got me stumped on this one. Like I said, these dimension or drawing tips and tricks, this could have been done at least a half a day. I could spend a half a day on this. Showing multiple configurations. You can show multiple configurations on a drawing. The build material, then you can have a tabular build material. I may have to end this right now. I'm in Houston, had a lot of rain, and my electricity is flickering now. Luckily, I'm on a UPS, so I should be able to finish this. But look like we're about done. But anyway, back to the build material. The build material can be configuration specific, and we can have a different tab for the quantities for the different configurations. So I think I'm going to have to cut the questions short. Few contact information. If you got more questions about drawing, you can reach me. I'm Wayne Matus, again, Wayne@progressiontech.com. If you need a demo on SolidWorks, probably most of you do not need demos in SolidWorks, but go to Progression Sales or Extension 1. Next week, next Friday, we're going to have a presentation on DriveWorks. DriveWorks is a configurator to where you can have a form that a user will fill out, and that form, there's some intelligence behind the form that you would have to set up to create a configurable parts, kind of like design tables but on steroids. Then also the following week, September 4th, it's going to be on the EPDM data card tips and tricks. So if you got EPDM and you create a bunch of data cards for different file types, it's a good webinar for you. Again, thank you for your participation, and if I did not answer any of your questions, shoot me an email and I'll get back to you. Thank you for attending.